Now I'm on site, it's time to actually start working on the job itself. You should have familiarized yourself with what kind of work needs to be done on beforehand, and make sure obviously you've got the right parts, tools and accessories with you to do the job. But now you're here, you just want to focus on this particular job, on job logic. And one way to do that is by not looking at all the jobs as you've been used to so far in this particular tab, but you're on today's job. So you could look at this particular tab, or in actual fact, you've already said that you're on site, which means for the system, it means you're working. So you could look at this particular tab. So if I click on the tab working, I will just see the job I'm actually working on at the moment. And as you can see, the two active buttons at the bottom are complete and quick complete. Now ignore the quick complete because it does the same thing as the complete. So when you're absolutely ready and done with everything, you'll be able to click that button and you will get through a process whereby you confirm things and the customer is allowed to sign and make notes as much as you sign off yourself and ready to go either to the next job or go home. So let's talk you through what it means to complete a job. Well, first of all, you can click anywhere on the actual job itself in about this kind of area, and that will then open more details of the job. So I click and here we go. We see the entire job and we see all the tasks at the bottom that we're supposed to fill and complete. And we can see there is a new tab at the top, mobile forms, which we'll get to in a minute, that we will also have to tackle before we can actually complete the job. So whilst you're working, and from the moment that you arrive, I would say have a look at the warnings tab at the bottom, at the top, and make sure there are no warnings there that actually you should have been aware of. There is a tab at the top for customer, and there's a tab next to that for site. So if I click on site, I can see that there is an aggressive dog on site for this test job. If I click on the customer tab, there are no warnings. So be warned, be informed, and make sure you take the necessary action. Going back via the back button, we're back to the main information of the job, and we're ready to take action, which means that we are able to make notes if we need to. We can make visit notes. We can view and make site notes. We can fulfill any tasks that have been set and they are mandatory. We can start to attach attachments, which is mainly the photos, the before and after photos that you need to take with their descriptions. We are able to register assets we leave on site, which have a warranty aspect to it or a serial number. You're able to load expenses as a cost onto the job. This is not to claim your expenses and be paid for it, but this is just to register that, for instance, you've paid for some parking or some unexpected little expenses. There is also a section parts right at the bottom. This is a section you can ignore. You do not have to add parts or consign parts to the job. This is done automatically. And finally, there is a button at the bottom, invoice. And again, you can ignore that one because you will not be invoicing from this end. And it might even mean this button does not appear on your live system once the system is live for everyone to use. So going through all those buttons at the bottom, let's go to visit notes first. You might have to make some notes just for information, and in this case you can click on the blank piece which opens up your keyboard, and you can make a note about any condition you find, which could be drafty house or something more important and more logic to you. Below the text box you will see two buttons, which one is notify office, another one is private. Private means it's not for you private, but it's private within the job logic system within Moldex. Notify office does exactly what it does. If you want the office to know that this house is very drafty, you simply click the box and you can save the note. In that case, I would keep it private because it's not for the customer to know that we think the house is drafty. You can click Save Note and you see that note appear below, marked as private, and at the same time there will be a notification popping up on the screen in the office about this note that you've made. An important note that you could make here, for instance, is if you've been given specific stock for this job, a specific type of fan or other equipment, and you had to decide to use a different type from your spare stock in your van, then you make notes here to say have not used equipment XYZ, but instead have installed equipment ABC. That way we can ensure that the back office is updated. Once you're done with your notes, you simply press the back button at the left top corner, and that brings you back to the main screen. So you can now see that the visit notes block shows 1 because that's the one that we made about the drafty house. To the right of that, side notes, which you might have already seen just to familiarize yourself with any notes that were made in the past. The same thing applied here. You can make notes and save them, and you can see them appear in a row below. There's an endless list you can make, but please make them a bit more sensible than the ones I've made here as an example. Going back, we keep coming back to the main screen. The third button we're going to touch is the task one on the left hand side, the second down. And these are tasks which are set by the office, which are mandatory. So in this case, we remind you that you have to take your before and after photos. And I can confirm, however, as I've so far not done any of those tasks and I've not made any photos, I will actually not tick this box at the moment, and I'll come back to it later. Where you can make your photos is via the attachments button. And you see currently there are no attachments at all. The plus button at the bottom will allow you, like in so many applications you're used to add attachments, and you see the pop-up screen whereby you can enter a description. You can tick the box private. In other words, is it just for our eyes in Moldex or is it for the customer's eyes as well? And there's the button add file. Now this one works no different than when you're in your WhatsApp. You click add file. You can choose whether to open your camera or find a file or look at your photos or videos. So just imagine you're in the house, you need to make a photo. It opens up your camera and I say welcome to my office. You make a photo just like you do on WhatsApp. Click OK, and the attachment is there, and this is like a very bad photo of a ceiling. You can add the file by clicking, you can add another file. Well, obviously you need to click Save Attachments, and that will add that attachment to your job. So no need to make photos, save them, email them to yourself, or all that difficult stuff. Literally open the attachments button in your job, make your photo there and then, save it with a proper name, and it will live on that job within the customer, within the site, for as long as we want it within the system. The next button down is Assets. And with assets, we mean products that we want to keep a good register of because they either are valuable or there's a requirement to register assets on site because of the housing providers' requirements, or simply because we want to see when things run out of warranty. And as we offer a warranty, it's important to register these assets. You can see a search bar whereby we can search by plant and asset. If we have a list showing already, we can sort by location and by asset condition. But as there is currently no asset showing here, we simply go to the button which shows site assets not on the job, and we plus it, which means we can create an asset there and then. A description It comes from a drop down of pre-populated items. In this case, there is only one, for example, of this training video. So I select that particular fan. I can select a class by simply clicking on the drop down button, and being not technical, I think that is a ventilation system, but you would know which class to assign it to. The asset number would be a number that either the housing provider or Moldex assigned to it. So just imagine that this type of ventilation system has number 1, 2, 3. You will get instructions of what numbers to use for what type of equipment. The same goes for system ID. Could be the first item in the property, the second item in the property, the third item in the property, etc. The location is what area it's in. So this is bedroom 1. The serial, obviously you take the serial number from the back of the unit or wherever the label is. The reference number is the item manufacturer number, for instance. For argument's sake, this is it. There's only one. The make, let's say it's a Vendexia. If I can spell it correctly, Vendexia, and the model is a
Response.
That was a very nice response. The response was the model. And the installation date is today. And how about that for a fancy date picker? So it's the 5th of May 2023, 4:15. That's the day I've installed it. The warranty expiry date would be the general 5 years, I would say, unless there's specific dates we should set, but I'm taking the 5 years here. I set that date, and any notes I want to make about the unit, save. And here we go. We have our first asset on this job. The green button is still there in case you want to add additional assets. So this is just for items which you will be told we need to register as an asset. And I'm sure you will find instructions coming forward soon about that. Expenses is the 6th and last one out of this section that we will tackle. So I click on expenses and I can simply enter any kind of expenses, parking, toll, other parking, 2 parkings. There will be relevant ones once the system go live. This is test data, but imagine I had to fork out a few pounds to pay for parking, and the office wasn't available to do it for me. So there's one, and I paid £3.50. That's all I need to do. It's saved, listed, and this is a cost added to the job. I remind you, this is not your way to claim your expenses. That will still have to be done in the normal way by sending your expense reports to Carol. So we have covered all of the top 6 of the menu items at the bottom of the screen, apart from the bottom 2 parts and invoices, which you can literally skip. You don't need to touch on those. Going back to the main screen, there are 2 buttons we haven't really touched on, which is the abort and the leave site. Abort, obviously you are aborting the job itself and you won't be continuing there for whatever reason. If you click the button, you'll be asked for a reason. The same for leave site. That could be temporary leaving the site to pick up some parts or to help out a colleague who's down the street or any other reason, but you are intending to come back to the site. So once you press leave site, you'll be asked for a reason and you'll be able to rejoin this job a bit later on. Scrolling to the top of the screen, we see that we've got the mobile forms tab, and that's a tab which will, once you open it, show you all the available mobile forms. Currently only the minor electrical installation works form is set there, but you will find all necessary forms potentially applicable to this particular job, and you'll be able to open them by clicking on them. and add them by clicking the add button, obviously, to this particular job. And depending on the document, because they are interactive digital documents, you'll be asked specific questions to complete so that the form once saved onto the job is particular to this job rather than a generic document. So I'm not entering any data other than description of the minor works,
It's quite empty, this one, so
all checked. Just to show you how it works, not that this is what you should be entering, and details of departures.
none noticed.
By clicking next, you'll be taken through the form. As every form is different, I will not actually go through the form itself, but you'll get an idea that there is different aspects of this form that you will need to fill out. Imagine you have in the paper form in front of you, you write your way through all the different boxes of the form. This is exactly what you're doing here online. You're typing just in the fields, and by the time this is finished, it will produce a form as if you've handwritten it. So you scroll your way all the way through, you fill in all the necessary details, you go next, next, next. You'll be prompted for any fields that are mandatory that you haven't filled out. Probably like many forms that you've done online for insurers or HMRC or anyone else. So I'm sure you'll soon enough familiarize. If not, please reach out to Tony or to Alfred, and we will help you get through this. Once done, you will automatically go back to the mobile forms, and you will complete any of the forms that you are supposed to for this particular job. Once all that's done, you're ready to go back to visit details, and I hope you've remembered one thing that we still needed to do. But if you haven't, don't worry, because the system will remind you. Because I think I'm done now. All the work has actually been done. I've actually spoken to the resident, and he says, yeah, all good, you're ready to go. I've filled in all the details on the job, and I'm ready to press complete and disappear. So I press complete, the big green button on the left-hand side, the bottom of the job. But I forgot something, because there is a mandatory job, which you see in the red on the top, that I haven't done yet. And that's me confirming that I've made the photos, if you remember. So I go back into the job by clicking anywhere in the main screen. Go to tasks. Open the task. There is task before and after photos. I should have taken them, and indeed I have taken a photo, but in real time you should have made all the right photos that you're supposed to make, and you just simply confirm by pressing the minus in the right hand top. It opens up your screen whereby you can say that yes, you have indeed completed the job, or you haven't completed the job. If you have completed, you press the green button. If you haven't, then you select the reasons for not completing. At the moment there are no reasons present, but there will be a list of reasons why you haven't completed. Once you've selected one, the red button not complete will flare up for you to press. But obviously we are all working towards completing this task and having made the photos. So I press the button complete and I save. And as you can see, there is now a green tick where there was a red button or a red bullet with a little hyphen, and that means the task is done. I can go back to the main screen by the back button in the top, and I am now ready to complete. Take that one out. Completing is simply pressing the big complete button in the middle of your screen, and that will take you to a summary of the job, which says you arrived at a certain time, and for 15:38 in this case, and at 16:21 I left. It also tells me on the top that there's an incomplete form, so I would have to go back, but I hope for the sake of this training I can run through it without having to complete it. It's also got a warning towards the middle of the screen to add parts. Like I said, you do not have to add parts because the parts have been added at the process of creating the job. So in that sense, I'm happy, and I can continue by pressing the big black continue button at the bottom. I then get the question whether the issue has been resolved, yes or no. So let's first of all assume that yes, you've done all your work, however the issue has not been resolved. So I click in the button next to the no, and I click next at the bottom of the screen. I will be asked for a reason why I didn't complete, and by clicking the drop down I will get various reasons as to why I was unable to complete. And I think a really good one is that there was a gas warning. Nothing I could do, but I had to evacuate for now and come back later. If I press next, that will go through to the office, and you can make notes to accompany the reason why you left and your recommendations. I will now go back to the fact that actually, in this case, the issue was resolved, to resume the training, and press the next button. Then I can still have some space for recommendations, which could be anything for future visits, or there could still be some little work to be done, or maybe the surveyor needs to come back for a totally different job. So you can type what you want or leave that blank. Press next. And you can add some public notes. Again, you can type anything there or press button no. You see, sometimes the system just wants you to complete something. All okay. So even if there's nothing to report, you're being forced to report at least that things are okay. The next button again, and it will give you an overview of the job when you're nearly there. This is literally just telling you when the job was created, when it was accepted, when you started to travel, when you was on site, how many miles you've done. So literally nothing for you to do other than press the button next. And there, it's time to get the customer involved. Let them type their name in. Position, well, usually the resident, but they might type something they like to call themselves, like the master of the house or something, but it's whatever they type in. They can sign simply with their finger on the screen. Just make sure to sanitize it afterwards. Press next, and it's time for the engineer to sign, and click save. And at that point you seem to be back into the same screen, giving you all the details of the job, but you probably notice one big difference, and it says there's a button travel home. So at that point you can travel away from the site, or you go to the back button and you go to your next job. So if this is the end of the day, you press the green travel home. If it's not the end of the day but you're looking for the next job, you have to go to the back button and you go back to the main screen with all your jobs. But it's time to go home, so we press travel home. Again, it confirms the date and the time that I'm traveling home. I confirm that at the bottom by pressing the button travel home. Again, I am back into what looks like the main screen of the job, but notice that there's now a button saying at home in a faint green, and that means once I am at home, that's the button I need to confirm to say I've stopped traveling, I'm done for the day. Which once again brings up the confirmation of the date and time, which is right now, and the mileage I've done from the moment I left the property to when I arrived home. Confirming, press continue. Again, you'll get a full overview of the entire job and all the time you spent on it. working, traveling and traveling home. Click save, and now you're done. And you're done because you can see that your job was completed. So at that time, via the back button, you're able to go back to your main screen, which shows me that I have no more visits that I'm working on. There's actually no more visits for today, which is good because I've just traveled home, and there are more visits to see for me for the rest of the period, tomorrow, next week, next month. In your case, there's probably multiple visits showing in that particular tab.